Good evening, Northern Colorado. This is Kilo Delta Zero Tango Yankee Uniform, Joe here in Loveland. I'm going to be net control for this evening's TechNet. Looks like I drew the straw this week, and I'm very glad I did. I really like this TechNet. So we will take check-ins. Just anyone who wants to check in, please call now.
This is KB0YBN, Eric, mobile with traffic.
WA9F Mule, Bob in LaPorte, no traffic. Good evening, Joe.
Oh, good evening.
J. Dayton, your Lions.
We had a double there. I got somebody from Lions come back.
It's K6DJ, Dayton, your Lions.
Okay, I've got that. Thanks so much. You're coming in really good. Whoever doubled with him, come back. I guess I made a mistake. Anyone else want to check in, please call.
Alpha 8 Hotel Foxtrot. This is Jeff in Fort Collins.
KD0YOP, Kilo Delta Zero, Yankee Oscar Papa, Scott in Fort Collins.
This is N0EMP, Greg in Fort Collins with Debbie, K0DBE, no traffic.
This is WB5TEX, Whiskey Bravo 5 Tango Echo X-Ray, Dale, Loveland, no traffic.
Okay, let's hold up there. I got Jeff, Scott, Greg, Debbie, and Dale. Thanks so much for checking in, guys. Anyone else want to check in, please call.
K0MLG, Kilo Zero, Mike Lima Golf Party.
Foxtrot 0, Sierra Hotel, Whiskey KF 0 SHW, Mary at Johnstown, no traffic.
This is
F0 SHX, Kilo Foxtrot 0 Sierra Hotel X-Ray, Norm, Johnstown.
KE0ME, Kilo Echo 0, Mike Echo, Dick, Loveland.
Okay, let's hold up there. Got K0MLG, Marty, Mary, Norm, and my good buddy Dick. Thanks so much for checking in. Anyone else want to check in, please call.
KG6OBC, Kilo Golf 6, Oscar, Bravo, Charlie, Justin, Mobile, Pierce. No traffic.
W5VV, Whiskey 5, Victor, Bill in Livermore.
November 7, Golf Papa Sierra, N7 GPS, Greg in Loveland.
Okay, I got Justin, Bill, W5VV, and N7 GPS, Greg. Anyone else want to check in, please call.
KA2AUZ, Kilo Alpha 2 Alpha, Uniform Zulu, Paul and Milliken.
This is AE0CF Alpha Echo 0 Charlie Foxtrot Ben, Fort Collins.
Okay, let's hold up for Paul and Ben. Thanks so much, AE0CF. Anyone else? Okay, well, we'll take check-ins a little bit later on. Eric, you had something you'd like to talk about. Go right ahead, my friend.
You had a perfect double with somebody, Joe.
Oh, whoever doubled with, please come back.
W0SAX, Jonathan, Horsetooth Reservoir.
Oh, W0SAX, good, Jonathan, thanks so much. Anyone else want to check in? I'm sorry. Okay, well, maybe now. Go ahead, Eric.
Okay, to try and keep this reasonable, I have a cautionary tale for you. For various reasons, I thought that my batteries were at the end of their life, and the charger was going through more equalized charges, and it didn't seem to be taking a charge, and all sorts of things like that. It turned out the batteries were fine. The problem finally completely manifested itself when a wire came out of an Anderson power pole. Now, my system, I've got two voltages working. I've got 24 volts. That's what comes from the solar panels and goes to the inverter and some military radios. And then there's a battery balancer that allows me to take 12 volts off without damaging the battery pack, which goes to the rest of the radios. The 24-volt feed into the battery, fused at the battery at 25 amperes, came loose, and it welded the Anderson power pole, 24-volt power pole, into the 24-volt rig runner very thoroughly. That's a bad thing. Now, think it through for a moment. Let me take a break. for a moment, low voltage, high current, which is what you're messing around with battery systems and ham radio power supplies, is very, very dangerous. Ohm's law tells you that. So a little bit of resistance in the wrong place can do things like weld connectors together. Now, the solution was new connectors, new power poles placed on the wires. By the way, the wire size for 25 amp circuit at 24 volts for me is 8 gauge stranded. That was put into the 24 volt rig runner, and from that point on, the battery has been behaving fine, and I took a thermal photograph of it when it was getting a full charge, drawing roughly 15 amps from the solar panels, and saw no temperature increases on the connector that were very much. So I feel a whole lot safer about it. But remember, low voltage, high current has its own set of dangers. KB0YDN, back to Nat.
Any questions for Eric? Eric, I think I have one, or maybe a couple. First of all, we know that, current, low current can kill you if it's in the right place. And I was not aware of this, but they make different power pole ratings for voltage. Until we were working on the Nunn job, and I found out that them suckers get bigger with the voltage. You had apparently the right voltage rating for that Anderson power pole, correct?
For this one, yes. It's not that much different from the 12 volt power pole. West Mountain Radio has decided on orange and black as their coloring scheme for the 24 volt power pole to keep them from being confused with the red and black. However, they are interchangeable, and the 30 amp connectors are rather large in terms of surface area. Now, when you go above the 30 amp connectors, that's when you start seeing the very large power poles that you'll find fitted on Larimer County trucks for their winches and things like that. Those that are approximately 2.5 inches, 3 inches wide, they're rather large, gray, and monstrous. This is the correct size for that kind of current. I mean, it certainly is safer than dealing with 25 amps at 12 volts. Let's put it that way. But that doesn't make it safe. It just makes it safer.
Yeah, that's interesting. And for the people who don't know what we're talking about, be honest with you, I didn't know. I assumed that you could actually use the same. The inside just changed as far as the thing, but actually the outside does also. And actually, if you get up into the stuff that we're running out at Nunn, and most of the stuff that we're running at most of the things, you'll be amazed that these power poles are like anywhere from 10 to $35 a piece, and that's not a pair, that's a piece for these things. and unfortunately, we broke one. We couldn't put it together. So, but anyway. You have to kind of match what you're doing with the right stuff, and I'm not. I knew that, Eric, you probably had the right one. I was just reinforcing what you said.
Just for those listening, next time you pull up to a Larimer County truck in a parking lot, look under their grill for a large gray assembly. That's the power pole connector. For their winches and jumper cables and inverters and other high current accessories that they want to be able to plug in. So once you see one, you'll remember it. But it's a pair of contacts in a single housing, and they're rated, 75 amps or something like that, Joe?
That's probably pretty close. And remember, a milliamp can kill you in the right. I mean, everything has to be perfect, to be honest with you, but it doesn't take much.
Well, for me, it was the brush of the plus 24-volt wire against the ground wire and the resulting pow and shards of copper spray going in every direction. It didn't blow the fuse. Think about that for a moment. KB0YDN.
Yeah, we look at this 12-volt stuff and we think, oh, there's no problem there, but you got to remember that battery's putting out one heck of a lot of current. Just be careful. Of course, the thing of it is that 12 volts, your body has more resistance in it that probably would hold it back, but don't trust that. So I know I've got amplifiers here that are 110 volt. That stuff you don't want to mess with, especially when you got capacitors in there. And I've got zapped by them. And James thinks I'm really stupid with this, and he's absolutely right. He's absolutely right. Any comments or questions? Really, this is something that we really need to talk about if you've never really fooled with this stuff. Okay, I guess not. Has anybody got any questions or comments or a topic to talk about tonight? Well, if not, I got one. Last time, I'm kind of part of the net. You guys don't hear me in there, but I try to record everyone that's there, and if no one has a topic, I just checking in. I record it, but I don't usually publish that because nobody wants to hear a bunch of people checking in. Excuse me, my dogs have found that there's something outside that they're interested in. But I heard a lot of people talk about lightning protection last week, and I heard a lot of really strange ways that people were doing this. Not that they were wrong. I just had never heard of some of them at all. So I'd like some opinions, and I know that Greg is sitting there thinking, oh, we're going to talk about lightning again, aren't we? But it's been a while, and last week was probably a good day to talk about it. But what do you think we should do with antennas that are outside? Any comments or questions or anything about this? Go ahead.
YDN.
I'll go right ahead, Eric.
Well, there was a book published back when Polyphaser was an independent company called The Grounds for Lightning and EMP Protection. And it had a very thorough analysis of how to properly ground systems and protect things. And you have to remember at the time, Polyphaser wasn't a hobbyist company. It was for professional broadcasters as well as hobbyists. And, for example, they always said, bond your tower at the base of the tower to the building and run your coax all the way to the base of the tower, bond and protect it there, and then run it back up the wall to get back into the building. The reason for bonding it is at lightning voltages and impulse, everything's an inductor. And so the top of the tower at, say, 8 feet, where you might cut across to the building, is going to be several tens of thousands of volts above where the ground potential should be. And there were lots of tricks like that they talked about. And they also published how to properly set up a ground window at the base of the tower and the like. I have a copy somewhere. I have no idea where it went, and I have not been able to locate it since Polyphaser got sold and became more a consumer-oriented company.
Before we go on, since we have some new people on here, I kind of want to explain some things. There are different companies that come out with lightning protection modules or surge protectors, I guess you could say. When we call, and I've heard people call, well, Polyphaser is a surge protector, but they just call it Polyphaser. That is just a company. It's kind of like you call a jacuzzi. It's actually it's not. It's a hot tub. But there's Alpha Delta is one, Polyphaser is one of them. DX Engineering actually has their own. Diamond has one. So this is actually a company that actually makes that. So I just want to make that sure. Does anybody else have any comments or something else that they personally do to if they get it comes in the house. It's not good.
SBO.
Well, go ahead, Bob.
Well, Joe, you've been here and you've seen what I've done. In this case, since I have the room for it, I moved the tower 70 feet away from the house because that way with the coaxes and rotor cables buried, a lot of that lightning energy gets dissipated before it gets to the house. Putting the tower right up against the house gives you a little too much ease of getting it in there. Anyway, there is a publication from Motorola called R56. Just do a internet search for Motorola publication R56, and it's a thick book. And it's what's used by the two-way radio industry to build repeater sites and such, where they get hit many times a year, and the units have to withstand that. They have to keep working. You can't send a guy out to change a fuse or fix a radio every time lightning hits a commercial two-way tower. So I'm going to say that that's probably the best publication I've seen on the topic. Anyway, do you have any specifics, or is there a particular thing you're looking for?
No, I'm just trying to see what everybody else has got out there. I kind of know what I got, but I just want to know what everybody else has got.
Okay. Well, at the base of my tower, I've got a box, and it's got lightning arresters in it. And then the cables go underground to the house where there's another box with more lightning arresters in them. So not much gets through that system, at least so far.
Anybody else?
EMP.
Oh, good, Greg. Come back.
So in addition, like you said, you want to keep the lightning outside the house. Once you get inside, you have problems. So in addition to having ground rods outside the house and lightning arresters on the coax lines outside the house, at the entry point, I've got switches that also have lightning arresters in the switches, alpha deltas, like you said. I leave those off the center grounded position when I'm not using the radios, just out of habit. But if an actual thunderstorm is coming in, some of my antennas I can disconnect outside the house. In particular, a long wire receive-only antenna that I have out in the backyard. I can unplug that outside the house, and the other ones here in the shack, I'll disconnect the coax from the radio if there's an actual thunderstorm approaching and I'm home, because a very direct hit or a very close hit will get through the protective devices and still destroy your radio. So if I have time, I'll unplug the power supply from the wall and disconnect the coaxes from the radios if there's a good storm approaching. And zero EMP.
I want to explain one thing also. The alpha delta, the diamond, the polyphasers, it's basically just a unit, if you will, and there's a little fuse in there. Okay, and when you purchase one, you can get replacement fuses. In fact, I had to replace all the fuses because they came with 100 watt things, and I'm pushing more than 100 watts. So you have to rate that fuse for whatever you're going to be pushing through. If you're going to push 1,000 watts or 1,500 watts, you have to change that fuse out to make that happen, because that's what you're pushing through it. I've never had a hit, but I know James has had a lot of hits out there, and they've worked really well. So you can do that. Anybody else have any way that they can manage this type of thing?
MLG.
I think that was you, Dick. Go ahead.
It was MLG.
Marty, go ahead.
That's okay. Last week when was it last week, I guess, we were talking about the lightning, and I said I don't do anything. I failed to mention, after my house got hit twice one afternoon, I put a lightning rod system on my house. Whether or not it has helped, I don't know, but I have never been hit again, and the lightning rods aren't higher than the antennas by any means, but maybe they attract the lightning. So I have rectangular shaped house, and I have a ground rod at the southwest corner and the northeast corner with number 12 solid copper wire going between each one through standoffs, insulated standoffs, and then up to the ground rods, which are 3/8 by 4 foot, welded to 3/16 by 4-inch plate that matches the peak of a 512 pitch roof, welded with gussets lag bolted to the roof, and ground rod clamps actually on each ground rod with one continuous wire between the two ground rods. But nothing on the antennas as of yet. Kaiser MLG.
Why do you doubled with MLG earlier?
Go ahead with your comment.
I just wanted to say I did have 2 near strikes. As far as I can tell, they were near strikes. That one knocked out my power, and 2 blew up CenturyLink's telephone equipment, and their wire lines have the usual gas discharge tubes that Bell did, but it well and truly took care of their equipment, but I had no damage. I was actually transmitting at the time.
You know, I guess I'm, I don't know if you guys know this, but most of you do. I'm from Illinois. I moved here right out of the Air Force in the early 70s, and a little town outside the Quad Cities, Rock Island, Moline, and stuff like that, big cities. And every house that I can remember in that whole town had lightning rods in there. And these houses were built probably around the turn of the century. I remember the houses that we lived in, when we lived in 3 different houses, what I can remember, and all 3 of those things had lightning rods on it. Is this a lost art or what?
YDM.
Go ahead.
I think it's a Midwestern regional thing where the soil is relatively conductive, because that was the case in Ohio as well. And we had them there. You know, as far as lightning goes, I've gotten struck in the car once outside of Boulder, and that damaged but did not destroy a mobile unit in the car. It had a polyphaser on it. I also saw, just within the last week, a picture taken of an Australian radar system that had gotten hit by the lightning that was, quote, 8 times stronger than typical, where the whole radome was fried. And it looks like there had been several side flashes out of the base of the radome from there, but it was non-trivial what it did to that radome. So, you know, I think while lightning strikes have similar characteristics in their impulse and decay shape, you can't necessarily count on one solution fixes all. KB0YDM, back to that.
Interesting. Any other comments about this? Go ahead.
TMP.
Go ahead, Greg.
There are, particularly for VHF and UHF, there are some antenna designs where the body of the antenna can actually be earth grounded. Prime example is a J-pole antenna, where the whole thing can be earth grounded. And another is folded dipoles can be grounded in the center opposite the feed point, and some Yagis that use Well, any that uses a gamma match and metal conductive elements directly mounted to a conductive boom, the whole thing can be earth grounded. And loop fed array, Yagis, I think the whole thing, including the feed point, can be earth grounded. So those types of antennas give a more direct discharge path to ground if you in fact ground them into a good ground system directly. And 0 EMP.
It's KD02YU. I'm net control for the CV's TechNet. Anybody else have any comments about this? Go ahead.
K6DJ.
Go ahead, my friend.
If anybody knows of a way to test the health of a gas discharge tube after there's been a nearby strike.
EMP, a lot of those you can take out the little gas discharge tube, and I would look for any obvious physical damage. I mean, a direct strike, the thing probably is going to explode, and you're going to have little pieces of broken glass. But I would look for any scorching or discoloration or any such thing.
So the assumption would be if there isn't visible physical damage, it's probably still viable.
Yes, with emphasis on the word probably.
Okay, thanks very much, K6DJ.
Well, one nice thing about it is that if it's shot, it's basically foolproof. I mean, it's fail safe because it won't let a signal through.
Joe, the systems I'm familiar with, it's not a fuse. It's a straight pass-through conductor. And then off to the side, it's not a fuse. The little element that's replaceable in anything I've seen is actually a small gas discharge tube, which is open circuit at normal operating power, but with a high voltage pulse, it will flash over and ground the center conductor that's passing through the device. So it's not a fuse, it's just the opposite. It short circuits when there's a high voltage pulse. So you couldn't use a fuse for lightning protection because with that high current, it would vaporize the fusible element in the fuse, but it would become a plasma that would continue conducting until the strike was over. So it's not a fuse, it's a gas discharge tube that short circuits when there's a strike and passes the discharge to ground. And 0 EMP.
You're right, I stand corrected. Sorry about that. Anybody else have any questions, comments? Go ahead.
Yes, Beal.
Go ahead, Bob.
Well, I've had some experience with gas discharge tubes designing auto patches and control circuitry, and these little glass tubes had wire leads on them, and they were, I think, rated at 300 volts, plus or minus 10%, something like that. And you could take a look at the thing because the glass was clear. You could see right through it, and if there was scorch marks or black on the inside, you knew it was bad. But I think the way these things fail is the voltage that it requires to break over gradually increases. So if you've got a gas discharge tube that's 300 volts one day and it gets hit a couple of times by lightning, that voltage is going to keep increasing until finally it won't give you any protection. So to answer the question about how do you test such a thing, I would think you'd have to have a high voltage source that was current limited, and you would keep increasing it until you saw the point at which the gas discharge tube broke over, and if that's the right number, you're okay. But I think most guys, like Greg says, just simply replace the cartridge.
Late check-in.
Go ahead with the late check-in.
This is K0NMR, Kilo 0, November Mike Romeo, Joseph in Fort Collins, with a comment.
Go ahead, Joseph. I got you down.
Thanks very much. My comment is, I happen to have, I'm a raccoon. Everything I find shiny things and bring them back to the shop or the lab or home. I have a 20,000 volt neon lamp transformer. It's 110 volts in, 20,000 volts out at a couple of milliamps. I don't remember exactly the current, which is used to power old-style the neon tube lamps, and would be an interesting means of testing a gas discharge tube along with a high voltage AC voltmeter. One would expect, as Greg was saying, when you've got enough voltage to activate the tube itself, what happens is the gas starts conducting. You have a plasma, and that would reduce the voltage across the tube itself. Don't know the exact values, but be an interesting test out.
YDN. Go ahead, Eric. Suggestion. The old J.B. Saunders used to have bins and bins of the gas tubes, just the bare tubes, to replace inside of discharge cartridges, things like that. When they folded and everybody scavenged their stuff, a lot of it went to West Mountain Radio in Fort Collins. So you might call them and find out if they have any of those bins of gas tubes, because I think the first few tests are going to be very destructive.
I could be wrong, but I didn't think those gas tubes were that expensive, are they? They may have went up.
I have no idea. KB0YDN.
Bill.
Go ahead, Bob.
I imagine this. Back in the old days when people used wire feeders instead of coax cable, occasionally guys would make a metal plate that sat outside the house and put a couple of spark plugs on it. You simply ran your wire feeders over the spark plugs and back into the shack, and you grounded the plate, and you had your gas discharge tubes.
Well, I guess that's one way to do it. I'm not sure we could do that today, but anybody else got any comments?
W1VAN.
Go ahead, Ivan.
So does lightning just strike wherever it's going to strike, or is there something that attracts it to a certain location, like a lightning rod or like an antenna?
EMP.
Go ahead, Greg.
I've seen pictures of lightning coming in and striking the base of a 100-foot tower instead of hitting the top of the tower. It comes in and hits the base, so it's going to hit where it's going to hit.
YDN.
I heard Eric. Go ahead.
The late Samaras, a storm chaser, was doing research with high-speed cameras on lightning strikes, and he photographed step leaders discharging both down and upward in 150-foot segments. And then when they meet in the middle, there would be a discharge stroke that would blind his cameras, but he didn't what he wanted.
Eric, we didn't hear very much of that. It was really scratchy. Want to try again?
KB0YDN, I'll copy now.
Same thing, not too good.
KB0YDN, disregard.
Okay. I'm looking at these gas tubes on HRO, and this is an MFJ one, though, but you can get them from anywhere from $10 to $20, but yeah, that's kind of what I remember them. Anybody else got any comments?
N7 GPS.
N7 GPS, go ahead.
So I was wondering about these old barns that have these big ornate-looking lightning rods on those. Those all have like a big glass bulb or a metal bulb on those. Would those be considered an old-school type of fuse link for going to ground?
Greg, that seems like that's something up your alley.
Yeah, I don't know what I know what he's talking about. I've seen those too. I don't know what the idea is behind that.
Just seemed like some old school technology there. I don't know if it has proven itself at one time or another, but everybody seems to have some pretty ornate looking lightning rods on these old barns.
Well, as I said when I was a kid back in Illinois, every house that I know on, even the new ones, they had lightning rods on it. And as Eric said, we were in Illinois, and it was, out here you pick up the grass. There you didn't worry about it because it was wet all the time. It rained all the time, so it was pretty moist atmosphere, and the humidity was high all the time too. So maybe that was the reason.
Well, I'll definitely have to investigate a little more before I find one of them old things and decide to rely on it.
Yeah, for an antenna, and please tell me if I'm wrong about this, but the lightning protection, the polyphaser, the alpha deltas, some of the other ones, I think that is probably your best bet. But I want to kind of tell you a story that James and I were talking about, and I think Greg was involved in this too. There was a guy that lost his radio, and he actually had it unplugged from his antenna. And I said, how could that have happened? And I think it was Greg that told me this. He said what they did was he hit the house. The guy had his computer on. It came through the line and actually went through his computer and burned his radio up. Was that Greg? Was you the one that told me that?
The one I'm familiar with was an HT that was in the box. But the box was against the wall of the house, and it was an area of the wall that the house wiring went through. And there was a direct strike, and the current going through the house wire made an electromagnetic pulse that was strong enough to kill the radio. It didn't have any visible damage to it, but it was stone cold dead.
You can do everything you can, but you're still going to have that factor. Murphy's Law, I guess we used to call it. So I guess it is what it is. I had never heard that because I said, well, how in the heck had that radio been shot? He says, well, it came through the computer. I says, well, yeah, but the thing didn't even have an antenna hooked to it. He says, yeah, and mine is the same way. Mine is hooked to a computer. And normally what I do is I unplug all my wires. And there's no antenna hooked to the radio, but it could come through the computer if the computer's on. So, any other comments?
W1VAM.
Go ahead, Ivan.
What do you guys use for lightning protection on the repeater? The repeater has to stay on, connected, and 24/7. And lightning storm after lightning storm goes over the top of Horseshoes up there. What do you guys do on the repeater?
Greg, you'd know better than I would, but I think I know, but go ahead.
We use polyphasers on all of our input lines, and I think our DB products, collinear antennas, or not collinear, the multi-bay folded dipole antennas, I think those are DC grounded, I'm not sure. But polyphasers on all the feed lines. We have a lot of Ethernet stuff coming in, too, because we have Ethernet cables coming in from the cameras, and we have Ethernet cables coming in from microwave dishes. And those go through a Ethernet surge arrestor that's built on a circuit board. And we had what was probably a direct strike at one of the sites, and it blew that Ethernet surge arrestor, physically blew it apart. It exploded and was charred, but it did its job, and there was no damage to the router or any of the computer downstream stuff inside the shack, and zero EMP.
And to kind of tag on to that, we think that may be what's wrong with none right now. Jim Gale and I were out there early part of last week, and we can't get that system up. We went through everything we could. We had James on the phone, and we're guessing that our polyphaser it was bad there, and we didn't have a way to short it out. So another trip out there, so it's still down, and we're guessing that that's what it was. We've installed everything we can install, and we still couldn't get it up. So we're guessing that may be what's going on out there. But he's going to take his analyzer out there and sweep the whole thing again. So, any other comments, question? Okay, well, this will wrap it up. It's a good night. I appreciate everybody joining in with this lightning thing, and because it's kind of important. We hopefully won't have very much of it from this on, but in the spring we could have. So I thank everybody. We had 22 check-ins tonight, and that lasted just about 50 minutes. Again, we'll be back again next Monday night. Don't forget our Wednesday night regular net, and I think we are in the first month of the first week of October, so we will have a DMR for our TechNet for TechNet. What am I talking about? Our Thursday night AriesNet will be on DMR. So if nothing else, it's KD0TYU clear, and the repeater's open for general use. Everybody have a great week.
This presentation was brought to you by the Northern Colorado Amateur Radio Club. For more information, visit our website, ncarc.net. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.